Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. I've got more musings to offer about President Trump and those of his ilk on the so-called caravan. That is a group of people in Honduras and Guatemala who I believe are wishing to cross into Mexico, and it's rumoured that some of them would like to go to the United States in the end. So with the midterm election only a few days away, the Republicans are desperate to create a diversion from the stock market falling, because remember, that had been one of Trump's strongest suits, how it had risen so much a few months earlier, from things like the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and Trump's characteristically pusillanimous response to it. And he always shows pusillanimity when he's got financial ties to the people who committed the murder. He's always lambasted the Washington Post, almost encouraged this sort of thing. What else? The way that Republicans voted for Brett Kavanaugh to be put on the Supreme Court, despite some very serious question marks over his alcoholism and other issues. The lack of affordable healthcare for tens of millions of Americans, the ongoing opioid crisis, and on and on. You know, these conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq with no end in sight. So what does Trump choose to do? He's choosing to talk about people who are over 1,000 miles away, and it's not proven that any of them want to go to the United States. Probably some do, but it's not proven that some do, to weaponize this issue. Now, it reminds me of the contrast with Black Lives Matter. A couple hundred people, black people, shot dead by the police each year, and the anti-BLM people say, thousands of black people are shot dead each year, only a small fraction by the police. What about the rest of them? Well, there's some merit in that argument, but, you know, we're told that hundreds of thousands of people illegally immigrate to the United States each year. Republicans would like to inflate the figure because they want to be alarmist about it. So we could use this rationale and say, but, you know, it's the highest estimate I've heard of the caravan at the moment is 5,000 people, some of whom would settle in Mexico, who wouldn't even attempt to cross into the United States, and not all of whom would make it if they tried. So we could say that's a tiny fraction of those who illegally emigrate to the United States every year would be coming in a month or two. And as it's known about now, so much can be done to stop them. Paying Mexico. How about being nice to Mexico for a change, President Trump? Assisting Mexico in stopping these people from even reaching the US border. And then pretending this is about a terrorist threat, about Middle Easterners. So appealing to the basest anti-Middle Eastern prejudice. Is anti-Semitism acceptable? Of course not. And let me remind you that anti-Semitism is about Arabs as well as Jews, since they're both supposedly descended from Shem, especially if you believe the Bible, and most Republicans are ardent Christians, so they must do. Well, domestic terrorism, I think, is a big issue. People are trying to murder Democrats and, you know, Democrat-leaning celebrities. Now, no one's been convicted. We don't know who did it, but cui bono. That does not mean that all Republicans are responsible for this, even indirectly. But President Trump and those who've encouraged acts of violence and violent crimes have been committed at Trump rallies, and he continued to incite violence. No one was actually killed so far at his rallies, but really it's only a matter of time. Someone gets beaten up, those physically attacking that person go too far and actually kill the person. So yeah, he definitely provided the mood music for this kind of thing. So it's definitely not ISIS trying to kill these Democrats. Well, I've not heard anybody suggest it's ISIS. But if ISIS has been sending bombs to, say, Republicans, then the Republican Party would want to tear up the Constitution, would want to bring in internal without trial, even more spying, frank torture, not just waterboarding, all the rest of it. It's all been suggested before. So about the caravan, what Trump said, they're unknown Middle Easterners. So journalists put him on the spot. How do you know that? And he acknowledged he had no proof of it. There's no proof of anything. Well, Trump doesn't strike me as the sort of chap who dips into French philosophy. Okay, I don't dip into it either. But I do know a little bit about Michel Foucault. It reminds me of him saying, there's a different regime of truth. And that is the way with Trump, a different regime of truth. So whose playbook is this from? The idea that there is no truth, and therefore there can be no falsehood. So I can say anything. It's unfalsifiable, and, you know, lies don't exist. Well, lies are what the opposition say, even if they're actually true, because truth, lies, truth, well, truth can be whatever I want it to be. It's simply a matter of opinion, or it's a sentiment. It comes back to Orwell's 1984 and the Ministry of Truth. A certain country had a newspaper entitled Truth. and the slogans of that dystopia that Orwell created, that war is peace, truth is falsehood, freedom is slavery. But the central one of those, truth is falsehood, that might as well be the motto of the Trump administration.